Hi, and welcome to your first official math lesson. We've made it through the math practices, and now we're ready to dive deep into our curriculum, starting with Unit 1, Lesson 1. Now, before we get started, I'm going to warn you that as I am making this video, Canvas is not working. So normally I'd like to show you side by side what Canvas looks like and everything else. Unfortunately, I can't do that as I make this video, but I will do that in the next video, and I hope that you can figure it out on your own today. The first thing that I want to point out is the naming structure that you're going to be seeing. In Canvas, in order to even see this video, you had to click on 7.1, and then I'm going to add a 0.1 again. Let me make sure that you understand what this means. This is grade 7. That's where the 7 comes from. That's your grade or the math level that you're in. The next is the 0.1 because that references the unit. This is Unit 1. And finally, we finish up with the 0.1 because that is the lesson. So Unit 1, Lesson 1 in Math 7. So 7.1.1 means you're in grade 7. We find that information here looking at Unit 1, Lesson 1. And what we're going to be talking about today is what are scaled copies? That's a question because throughout the whole lesson we're going to be kind of referencing that question and seeing if we can answer it and figure out what are scaled copies. To get started, now again, normally I would show you a side-by-side of a PDF and what you're seeing in Canvas. What you're seeing in Canvas is going to be kind of the same, a little bit different. I'll be switching pages and moving to the next page, and you guys will just keep on scrolling down if you're going to stay in Canvas. The other option that you have is you can just print off this PDF. If you watched our video that I assigned yesterday, then you will be able to see where you can find that PDF. So you can print off the PDF and you can go through the PDF as I'm going through the video. The other option is to kind of move the video because the video is going to be embedded at the top of Canvas, and you can move that video so that it plays in YouTube and then just continue to scroll through Canvas. So you'll have to have two browsers or two windows open, but you can have your video going and scrolling through Canvas. You choose what works for you. Do you want to be purely online, purely digital, and not worry about handwritten notes? Or are you the type of person that in order to stay focused, you need to take those handwritten notes? Then you might want to print off that PDF. And that way you only have to worry about one window and it can just be the video and you don't have to worry about anything else. So with that in mind, I'm going to continue on here. We're asking the question, what are scaled copies? And so we have this visual here and it says printing portraits. We do have an interactive version, which I'm hoping that that's going to work for us today. So I'll click on that and you guys can also click on that because it is in Canvas. But we have a picture of a student. Here is a portrait of a student and we're looking at these portraits below, A through E, and we want to kind of figure out how are they the same or different from this original photo. Think about that. How are they the same or different from the original? Maybe go through and write down different notes. How are they the same or different? Pause the video to do that because I'm going to be moving on pretty quickly, but pause the video so that you can write down how they're the same or different. We're back. Hopefully you notice certain things like this. This is the same kid, but this one is stretched out. And not only is it stretched out, I would say that it's stretched out taller. It's stretched out vertically. This is also the same kid, but this one is, you can say a couple things. You can say that it's squished. You could also say that it's stretched out this way, horizontally. So in both of these versions, the way I kind of imagine this is if your parents, this is what your class photo looks like at school, and that's what they expected it to look like, so that's what they ordered, but then when the package of pictures come back and you look like that, they're not going to be too happy about that. They're not going to be too happy about this either because that makes you look a little bit chubbier than you are naturally. This is okay. That just means that they ordered smaller versions. Maybe you can cut them and put them in a wallet. This one's okay. It's bigger, but it just means that they can put it in a big frame and hang up on the wall. So notice how these ones are so very similar to that initial one. They look the same. Yes, it's a smaller size, but it still looks like the same person. He's not taller or skinnier or chubbier. He looks the same. And this one, same idea. It's just a larger version. And this one is all sorts of weird. This one's slanted. So if you are looking at the digital version of this, and this is what's pretty cool here, you see something that looks like this. And you can go ahead and play through this if you click on the applet on Canvas. Again, here's the original portrait, and here's how A is changing. Notice that it's only changing in one direction. This one is only changing in one direction, and it's the opposite direction of the way that this one was changing. This one is changing in both directions. It's getting taller at the same time that it's getting wider. And we see the same behavior here. It's getting taller and wider at the same time and at the same rate. And this is just getting even more slanty. And so hopefully that also helps to solidify what it is that we're talking about. And it leads us into the next question. What do you think, which ones do you think are scaled copies? So again, we opened the lesson with that question. What are scaled copies? And I'm telling you, some of these portraits, A, B, C, D, and E, some of the portraits are scaled copies. That's a new vocabulary term that we're going to be talking about. So I'm highlighting it. Some are scaled copies of the original portrait. Which ones do you think are scaled copies? And make sure you're able to explain your reasoning. So again, pause the video, answer that question. Which one do you think are scaled copies? And we're back. I hope that you came to the conclusion that C and D are scaled copies. And that leads us directly into, what do you think scaled copy means? So if you had a struggle answering this question, you didn't correctly say C and D, again, I want to tie it back into, this is the school portrait that you took and your parents ordered pictures. Which ones are they going to be the happiest to receive? Are they going to be happy to receive this one? And I think that you understand that the answer is no. They're not going to be happy. That doesn't look like you. It looks like it's taller or skinnier. This one, they're not going to be happy because it looks like it's a little bit chubbier than you are. So they're not going to be happy with that one. They would be happy with this because it does look like you. It's just a bunch of smaller versions of that, and that's okay. It has its purpose. We can cut them up and put them in cards. This one is okay too. Yes, it's bigger, but it's because it's going to be hung up in a frame on the wall. So that one's good. Your parents are going to be happy with that. And this one is just weird. It's slanted. You're not going to find any sort of frame that works with that, and it just looks like you're always leaning off to the side. So we wouldn't be very happy with that. And that's how we came to the conclusion that C and D are scaled copies. It's our new term. So based on that, what do you think scaled copy means? Again, pause the video if you need time to write this down before I give the answer. What is it that you think scaled copy means? And in normal class, we would ask for some class discussion on this, a few students to share their answers. And scaled copy really just means we want it to be smaller or larger. It can be smaller or larger. But we don't want there to be any squishing or stretching. And the final thing is this new term. It's a little bit fancy, kind of a big word. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. Not distorted. So again, that distortion gets into things kind of being twisted or weird, or, and this one, slanted. This is distorted because it's been squished down. This is distorted because it's stretched up. And so we can see that concept of distortion. It's a very visual sort of concept. Okay, now, here is your next exercise. And this one's been kind of an interesting exercise for the students in class. It's scaling F. So again, you have a digital version of this, which we will get to in just a second, and hopefully that will also help you make sense of it. But here is our original F. And we have a couple other drawings. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I want you to identify all of the ones that you think are scaled copies. Now, I do want to warn you, not all of them are. Only some of them. So which ones do you think are? Let's review. Scaled copies can be smaller or larger. There's no squishing, there's no stretching, and there's no distortion, which means as I'm looking at this, I want the F to look like this F. It's okay if that F is bigger, it's okay if that F is smaller, but it still needs to look like that F. So to get you started, I think it's pretty clear that drawing 3 is not going to be a scaled copy. Yes, it is still the letter F, but it's a letter F that looks really wide compared to this original one. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure out the other ones that are scaled copies. All right, we're back. Let's see how you did. When it says to identify all of the scaled copies, the only scaled copies of the original letter F are 1, 2, and 7. If you struggled with that, that's okay. We're going to continue to talk about that and clarify that understanding. Part 2 says examine all the scaled copies more closely. Again, we're going to look at 1, 2, and 7, specifically the lengths of each part of the letter F. How do they compare to the original? What do you notice? And I'm going to guide you through this one. And the things that I want you to notice are this. Here we have the top part of F. Notice how long that is. That's 2. And we're breaking this up into pieces. Okay, so we've got this side, the upper half of this side of F is also 2. And the lower side of F is also 2. Notice 2, 2, 2. And we're also going to talk about the smaller arm. The smaller arm is just 1 long. So knowing that, I'm going to skip drawing 1 for a second. Knowing that drawing 2 is a scaled copy, let's compare. This top part is 4. The side part, when we count and see how long it is, it's also 4. If you are taking notes at home and you're taking them on the PDF, notice the color coding. The color coding helps us draw our eyes to the same places and helps us make sense of this problem a little bit more. So that is also 4. And then I can move on to the small little arm, and I see that this small little arm is 2. Be thinking about that. Let's move on to drawing 7 before I come back to drawing 1. Drawing 7, this one is also a scaled copy, so I look across the top and I see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when I look at the top part of the side, I see that that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Any surprise? Do we really need to count this? We do. But I hope that you understand and that it makes sense that this is also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We see that because in this, what we're seeing in this behavior here is we have 2, 2, 2. It's 2's all the way around there. Yeah, the arm is different, but we see 2, 2, 2. So if this is going to be 4, then it makes sense that this piece and this piece are also going to be 4. And if this is 6, then this piece and this piece are also going to be 6. It makes sense because we're not going to distort it. If one side is going to get bigger, then we want all of those pieces to also get bigger. Now let's pay attention to the arm. This was 6, 6, and 6, and this arm is 3. As we get ready to talk about drawing number 1, I want you to start making some connections. 4, 4, 4, how did I know what this was going to be? Without just counting, how would I know what it was going to look like? Is there a connection between the number 4 and the number 2? Is there a connection between the number 2 and the number 1? Or even here, is there a connection between the number 6 and the number 3? Drawing 1 hopefully ties it all in together for us. This top part is now 3. So it makes sense that this side is going to be 3, and this side is also going to be 3. Now if you notice, this isn't 1, it goes past 1, but it doesn't quite make it to 2. And again, I want you to make that connection. Based on all of our other connections, 6 and 3, how are they related? 4 and 2, how are they related? 2 and 1, how are they related? And hopefully it makes sense now that this piece isn't 1 or 2 because it's 1.5. In other words, the arm is half of the top. Half of 3 is 1.5. Half of 4 is 2. Half of 6 is 3, and all the way back at the original, half of 2 is 1. So we're keeping our proportions. Everything's kind of growing at the same rate or shrinking at the same rate. And I want to make sure that we extend this a little bit further as well. I want to compare everything back to our original. So I'm just going to talk about the top parts here. 2, when it grew to be drawing 2, that 2 somehow changed into a 4. How did that change into a 4? Well, it's because it went through a little bit of a transformation here. It was multiplied by 2. It was doubled. Okay, and that here is for drawing 2. So to get from the original drawing to drawing 2, we can see that everything is doubled. 2 becomes 4, 2 is doubled to be 4, 2 is doubled to be 4, and this one is doubled to be 2. Now, let's compare that same information going from the original drawing to drawing 7. 2, how is it changing? Okay, I'm seeing that this 2 in drawing 7 somehow transforms into a 6. How? How is that transforming into a 6? I hope that you can see that it's because we are tripling it. We're multiplying it by 3. So drawing 7 is 3 times the size of our original F. I'm going to note here that that's drawing 7. And now the last one is the toughest one, but it is still possible. 2 is being transformed into a 3. How is it being transformed into a 3? And here's what you need to be taken away from this. Here we doubled it, we multiplied by 2. Here we tripled it, we multiplied by 3. So I want to think of this in a multiplicative relationship. I don't want to think of it as just adding 1. So 2 times what is 3? It's 1.5. 2 times 1.5. So what we're multiplying everything by in the original drawing to become drawing 1 is we are multiplying it by 1.5. Okay, let's continue on. On the grid below, I want you to draw a different scaled copy of the letter F. Pause the video and give it a try on your own first. See how well you're catching on. See if you're noticing some of those details. So answer question 3. On the grid, draw a different scaled copy of the original F. And that's where we get to this point where I can click on the applet. When you click on the applet, it looks like this. So maybe you didn't actually print off the PDF and you don't have the PDF to work from. That's okay. You have the applet instead. So if you're going purely digital and you're not printing off your PDFs to take notes and you're not writing, you can still do this exercise. So pause the video and work on this applet. Here's how it's going to work. So maybe don't pause the video. I'll get you started a little bit first. Segments. So I can be drawing different pieces. And I am not drawing a scaled copy, so I hope that you're not copying word for word or mouse stroke for mouse stroke. Okay, I can make all of these with these line segments. Okay, so you're just going to draw your own scaled copy of F, whether you're drawing it physically on your paper or you're using the applet. I'm going to clear this by hitting trash to delete each one of these pieces. Maybe I can also click this. Yeah, that's the one. This is the button that's going to clear everything for you. So play around with that applet for those online users, or draw F down below. Pause the video until it's done, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, and we're back. Now again, this is our drawing of F. Our original was 2. Oh, I can't remember what color I used. Purple and then green. This was 2, and this was 2, and our little arm was half of 2, or 1. So we want our new scale drawing to be different. We've already used 2, 3, 4, and 6, so maybe what we could do is we could do 5. 5 is missing. Maybe we can make that top part 5. Maybe we can make it 8. Maybe we can even make it 1. So we'll do all of those ones. And what I want you to notice is if I'm going to make my F be 5 on the top to start, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that means that since that red piece is 5, that means that purple piece would also have to be 5, right? Because this was 2 and this is 2. And that also means that our green piece, since that was 2 here, is going to be the same number, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it means the arm, so again, remember, this is half the length of this, and half of 5 is going to be 1, 2, and a half. So maybe that's what your F looks like. Maybe it looks a little bit different. Let's look at some other options. The next one I'm going to draw is 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now the top part of the F is 8, which means keeping everything the same. If that grew to 8, then that means this piece is going to grow to 8. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the next piece is also going to have to be 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And our arm is going to be half of that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, we're keeping all of our side lengths growing the same way. And now the last one, what if I wanted to make it smaller? So now I'm just going to do 1. Well, if the top part of F is 1, then that means the side is 1, and the lower part of the side is 1, and the arm that goes across is going to be half of that, which is only going to be halfway through. So we can now compare it to drawing 6. A lot of students sometimes get confused with drawing 6 and they say it looks like it, but if it really were a scale drawing, it would have only been half of that. And some students say, well, this looks like it. It looks pretty good, except for half of 3 is 1 and a half. So that's why drawing 5 and 6 were not scale drawings. And of course, we all knew from the beginning that drawing 4 was not a scale drawing. But we've really talked about that in depth. We've proven it. We've done our own scale drawings. So we're ready for the next activity. And it says that an interactive digital version is available. That's not quite true. This is just the applet for the sketch down here. So when you're ready to do your sketch down here, number 3, that's when you can open up the applet. But this is what it's going to look like. It says your teacher will give you a set of cards that have polygons drawn on a grid. Mix up the cards and place them all face up. This is what it's really going to look like. Here's all of your cards. Let me change this just a bit here. Here's all of your cards. And you basically are going to play a matching game, but you're matching figures that are scale copies. I'll get you started on the first one, and the rest will be up to you. I can see that A has a side length of 1. It also has a side length of 1 here, and here, and here. And I can see a side length of 3 here, of 2 here. This is 1.5 here. And 2.5 down here. So just making sure that we're paying attention to that, the side lengths there helps us understand when it's going to be growing and being scaled, then what is it going to look like? Let's first see if it looks like B. And we can see 1, that side length is now 2. So how does the 1 change to a 2? Well, we doubled it. Let's see if it follows suit in all the other places. This was also a 1, so that means this should be 2, and it's not. This was a 1, so this should also be a 2, and it's not. This one was a 1, and it should be a 2, and that one does work, but these ones don't. So I now know that A and B are not going to be scaled copies. Let's keep on looking and see if we can find one that's a scaled copy. Let's look at C. 1, and that same side on this figure is 2. So again, 1 doubled is 2, so far so good. Let's check the others. Here's a 1 and a 1 and a 1. Are they each 2? It looks like it. Each one of those is doubled, so far so good. Let's continue. This side length here in blue was 1.5, and if I double 1.5, I should get 3, and what do you see? That side length is 3, so that's working out pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about this one. 2.5 doubled is going to be 2.5 and 2.5 again for a total of 5. So yes, things are working out very nicely. Just a few more to check. This side length is 2, double that, and we get 1, 2, 3, 4. It's looking great. And 3 across the top in purple, double that, and we get 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3 again, doubled 6. So looks like we found a scaled copy. A and C are scaled copies. Coming back here, I'm just going to have you guys kind of skip down here to 2 because you don't have partners, so you can't do the matching game with partners. It's just going to be up to you to match each one of these and write them down here for number 2. So A and C are scaled copy pair. Okay, we did that one. The rest of them are going to be up to you. So I want you to pause the video on this page, and I want you to find all of the pairs that you can and make sure you write them down because the answers will be coming up soon. Again, the directions are pause the video, finish pairing these up, write your answers down. Pause the video now. Okay, and we're back. Let's take a look. I have paired with B. I have D. Paired with E, I have I. I'm going to skip ahead because this one was the most challenging one. Paired with H, I have J, and finally paired with F, I have G. That one is the most tricky one, but I promise you they are scaled copies. And what I want you to pay attention to as you're looking at F and G and any of the others, you kind of have this visual understanding of which ones are scaled copies. They look the same, just bigger. This looks really boxy, and this also looks really boxy, where this one looks really long, and you can see this one looks really long. So we're seeing the same sort of shapes and that same sort of like thickness. And yeah, it might be thicker when it gets bigger, but we're seeing that same sort of concept. So this can be a very visual activity. Okay, with that in mind, I think you're ready to draw your own scaled copy. So again, you can use the applet for that. And what you're doing is pick a pair. I don't care which pair you pick. This is just for your own experience, but pick a pair, maybe A and C. And using that applet, you're going to make your own pair that could also be a scaled copy. So using the applet, it's blank, and that it's blank so that you can start drawing things. And remember the shape that they take, they're basically all in this sort of format, right? But make it an actual scaled copy of whichever pair it is that you're doing. There's my faked version. Pause the video and get that done. Okay, we're back. Are you ready for more? This is a great, challenging, deep thinking question that I'm not going to go over. This video is already long enough, so I'm not going to go over that, but I do want you, especially if you're wanting that challenge, I want you to get to this point. Is it possible to draw a polygon that is a scaled copy of both polygon A and polygon B at the same time? Can one drawing be a scaled copy of A and B? Think about that. And now it is time for our summary. Let me make this bigger again. What is a scaled copy of a figure? Let's look at some examples. The examples, it's a very visual concept, and so these examples really help us understand it. Here is our original Y, and it says the second and third drawings are both scaled copies of the original Y. They're bigger and smaller, but they are the same, they look the same, just smaller and bigger versions. However, and this is where it all starts coming together, here the second and third drawings are not scaled copies of the original W. Notice, as we continue to read on, the second drawing is spread out. It's wider and it's shorter. In this drawing, it's the same height, but we took that and we scrunched it together. It's a lot skinnier. So we squished it in. And these are not scaled copies. So it's a very visual thing. You can look at it and you can tell if it's a scaled copy or not. And we are going to learn about more and more, that's what this whole unit is about, of what it means to be a scaled copy of another. Let's go on to our lesson 1 cool down. And this is another one where I want you to pause the video and see if you can work this one out on your own. Are any of these figures, B, C, or D, scaled copies of the original? Take a look very closely, count and measure if you need to. Are any of these, B, C, or D, scaled copies of figure A? Pause the video while you answer. Let's come back. The correct answer is C. C is a scaled copy. Some things that you can look at is we can see that this is 1 and this is 2. So we can see that relationship. 1 is doubled to become 2, and we can continue on. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's going to be doubled to become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can continue on with each one of those measurements, and you can see that whatever it was here, it's doubled here. So C is a scaled copy, and the others are not. What you have now is your homework. So if you print it off the PDF, you're going to see that that PDF does contain your practice problems. That's homework. If you did not print off the PDF, you're not going to see anything else, but you'll go next in Canvas and you will do those assignments or all of those practice problems there. I don't know if there's applets available, so it might be things that you just need to work out on paper and then type in your answer. I know it's not ideal. I know it's a challenge. I wish I could make it easier, but sometimes that's just the way that things are, especially where I can't be on Canvas right now to fix it because Canvas is not working. So let me know what questions you have. Send me an email. Email is preferred over Canvas communications. I check my email daily. I don't always check Canvas, so make sure that you're emailing me any questions that you have. And let's get started on our math curriculum. Thanks and have a good one. We'll see you next time.